What is going on, guys? We're back here on the Phaithful Phanatics show talking more about this Sixers Nets series. We are now joined by Austin Krell, who covers our 76ers for the Painted Lines Network, as well as being a contributor for USA Today Sports Media Group. You guys can find him on Twitter at NBA Krell. My man, it's been a while since last talking to you, but how have you been, and how's this season been covering the Sixers?
Everything's good. Thank you for having me. It's been a while.
Yes, sir, it has. All right, man. Listen, let's get right into it. I know it's very early on, but through just 2 games, what do you view as the biggest difference in this 76ers team compared to previous playoff runs? I'm not talking teams in regular season, but the way that Joel Embiid's game is kind of kind of transitioned into picking up double and triple teams earlier, the role players knocking down shots. What do you view as the biggest difference so far?
I think that they just have a lot of different ways to win. Like I think if you said it's early. I think if I'm Brooklyn, I'm pretty demoralized heading back heading back home today. Like just to be totally honest with you, first game Harden is great, and they do a decent job, against Joel, keeping him quiet, and they lose by 20, and it's a historical shooting night. And so it's like, okay, well, you pick yourself up and then you try to come back again, game two. And Jacques Vaughn told us after, before game two, I wanted them to get up 43s, and I want them to be more aggressive on the glass. Well, got up 42 threes, which was good. Shot 13 of 42. And then you got out rebounded by 27. So not great there. And they've won the first 2 games doing vastly different things in each game. And Joel has not had his say on offense at all in the series. Like he's largely just playing the game that they're letting him play. He's not forcing anything. They doubled him at the catch in game one. They doubled him on I think they doubled him on the backside in game two, where he would catch high, and then if he turned his back, the guy on the backside would sell out to try to get him. And then once he kind of realized that he could actually use it to his advantage, he was killer, and they won the game pretty easily. So I mean, Brooklyn is already on the ropes. They're down 0-2. It was one more. The historical significance of being down 0-3. Go to Brooklyn, take care of business, get off your feet for a couple of days, because you're going to have Boston likely, and that's the real battle. But I look at the series, and it's not over, because you're only up 2-0. Everyone, who knows what can happen, yada yada yada. But for all intents and purposes, barring something catastrophic, it would seem to me that the series is over.
Yeah, no, I think you make fair points there. And yeah, I think after the first 2 games, I've had to even adjust my analyzation of the series itself. I had the Sixers in 5, just thinking, maybe the Nets get hot, which still could be the case for one specific game, but still, I've had to lower the expectations for the Nets per se to get swept, in my opinion. But looking at the first 2 games, Tobias Harris, he's a guy that gets talked about a lot. He's a polarizing figure in Philadelphia. Some hate him, some love him, some are in between on him. But nonetheless, he's been the most consistent player, I would say, aside from Joel Embiid. Of course, Embiid's not his normal self scoring wise, but he is doing his other parts of the game, right? But looking at Tobias Harris, what were your expectations coming into the playoffs for Tobias? And what have you seen from him so far? Positive wise for Tobias's game, and how does that affect the Sixers' ceiling throughout the playoffs?
Yeah, so Tobias, my expectation was that he would be the Swiss Army knife that he's always been for this team, especially since Harden arrived. And I thought he would be licensed to take on a top 2 offensive assignment for the Nets and try to, win that battle. And I thought, it would be a lot of catch and shoot, read and react, catch and go type stuff. And I will say this, because as much as people say that he's not a playoff guy and that he doesn't have, the the killer instinct to him that a superstar should have. I do think it's impressive to be able to be like, oh, I'm going to struggle to find my footing for most of this season, and towards the end of the season, kind of look kind of lost for for being honest. And then as soon as the playoffs start, oh, I'm going to average 20 points over the first 2 games of the series. I'm going to take these threes, and I'm going to be a monster. At the rim. Tobias is not a very good finisher. Has never been a very good finisher. He's been very good around the rim the first couple games of the series. Been very strong with the ball. And I think what I would say about Tobias is it's very important to have a guy who is both skilled but also like super professional in how he handles what is asked of him. Last night they after the third quarter timeout that Doc took with like a minute into the second half, I noticed that they put Tobias and Dunker and they put PJ in the corners, and then you got the ball moving, and PJ, ball goes to him, 2 guys come at him, and then suddenly he finds Tobias for 2 dunks in a row, and so some guys might say like, no, I'm not going to go sit in the dunker spot. I'm this guy, I'm that guy, and so he did do that, I think that's very valuable, not just for this team, but for the guys on the bench who are young and who are watching, watching you play. And, I think that rubs off like a guy like a Paul Reed, for example.
Yeah.
Doc, Doc Rivers kind of alluded to it, and it was quite frankly unreported/underreported, but I mean, it was not a secret exactly that James Harden wanted to play with Montrezl Harrell first part of the season because Montrez was a little bit, more well-rounded on offense, and Paul was a little bit less, willing to sort of play within the box of, what they wanted him to do. And, Paul now is very good, is getting very good as a roller. And he's kind of accepted that this is my role. And this is what my job is with this team. And this is how I can get on the court. And I think part of why he sees that and accepts that is because you have a veteran out there who is making max money, or what was max money at a period at one point in time. And he has also accepted that, okay, I'm not going to be the focal point of this offense anymore, or even the top 2 option, but I'm going to be a professional and do what it helps for this team to win. So I think whenever we talk about Tobias and his impact, it goes beyond what you see in the box score and what you see him doing in games. It's about the eyes but the people that are on the bench that are watching him and what that means for the team.
That's a great point. He does have a calming presence. Every time he speaks, right, he's very positive. So I do get exactly where you're coming from with that.
Tell a friend to tell a friend. He's not just a shooter, dude. But I want to circle back to the big fella. And I know we're talking mostly specifically this net series, but looking at the entire landscape and moving forward in the postseason, after leading the league in scoring, what looks like, hopefully knock on wood, his first MVP award, Joel has only scored 26 and 20 in the first 2 games so far. Through those 2 games, obviously Brooklyn's defensive focus has been to immediately trap, double, sometimes triple team, and just throw bodies at Joel once he touches the ball at the top of the key. What have you seen in the evolution of his game throughout the season so far through these first 2 games to be able to identify these double and triple teams before the ball even gets to him? There's no more 9 turnover games from Joel Embiid, anything like that. The ability to find the open shooter and trust his teammates. And how big is that moving forward for the Sixers team against a Boston Celtics team or a Milwaukee Bucks team?
Well, unfortunately, in Game 2, he had 8 turnovers. So you're almost right. There are no 9 turnovers.
The whole team did, though. The whole team did.
Fair. He also had like 3 in the last minute of the game. That's not here nor there. I think like one thing that you can point to is like his conditioning and his motor. That those 2 elements show themselves in a sort of a sneaky, subtle way. Like in Game 2, right? Brooklyn. He gets physical on offense a little early in the game. He gets a couple mismatches. He draws some off ball fouls, and you could just see the tone of the game there. But also, the first 2 games of the series, they have been fronting him, they have been backing him, they've been shading him. He's been having to dance around the floor and jockey for position just to get his right hand out there to say, hey, I'm ready for this touch. Give me the ball. They haven't even made it easy for him to even just seal and go and make himself available. So he's had to constantly be on the move just to get the ball, and then when he gets it, he has to make quick decisions. Now, game 1, they're doubling him on the catch, and that's a little bit easier to read out of because it's like pretty straightforward. Okay, I get the ball, I got to turn or find the open guy quickly. I thought last night they were a little bit late with in terms of when they did the doubles. They weren't doubling necessarily on the catch, but when he turned his back, the guy on the side of the court where his back was facing would sell out, try to get to him because he couldn't see him coming, and that presented some problems. I also thought that his decision making last night, or I guess in game 2, was not pristine. He dribbled into the traffic a little bit too much. But what he's doing, and I think this is the superb artwork that this is Picasso. He is getting the ball and he is learning, okay, I'm going to leverage my own ability as a scorer against you. I'm going to sort of take a dribble or 2 away from the attention to draw and string out these two guys that are coming at me. There's something called stringing out a double team, which is when the double comes, you pull back and you really try to create some space, but not because you're trying to score, but because you want to keep 2 defenders away from the rest of the action. So when you spit the ball across the floor, it's now an advantage elsewhere because 2 guys are trying to recover all the way back from you to somebody else. So he's learning how to string guys out when they double him. He's learning, okay, I got these 2 guys here, and I see another defender there and another one there. That means that there's only one that side of the court. And so I'm going to turn around. I'm going to find that guy quickly. So he's learning how to leverage his own ability as a scorer to make everybody else better. And we talk about trust over and over again. Trust is super, super, super important. And I think that's maybe the most significant element of maturity that we've seen from Joel. And I think it goes both ways, offense and defense. Game 1, I posted this clip on Twitter because I thought it was a phenomenal defensive play. Cam Johnson beats Joel on a spin move and is going to the rim. Joel could have said, "This is prideful for me. I gotta beat him to the basket, and make a play here." And maybe he gets a block, maybe he doesn't, maybe he hurts Cam Johnson because he's trying to close out with reckless abandon. Maybe he hurts himself or a teammate. He also sees PJ Tucker there, and Tucker is sliding up to help his teammate. Joel calls an audible out of that and says, "I'm going to go and I'm going to concede that I've lost this one-on-one matchup, but I'm going to see how I can impact this play elsewhere." So he tracks Johnson goes to throw a lob. He tracks the lob and blows up the play. That's a simple thing. It's just simple trust. He trusts PJ, and he lets his teammate help him. And it goes on the offensive side of the floor too. Against Boston, when he had the 52-point night a couple weeks ago, they're doubling him at the elbow. He finds PJ Tucker for threes in the corner and back-to-back possessions to put that game away. He's learning that part of being a superstar and part of growing and maturing is I got to build equity with my teammates, because if I put trust in them, that's going to help them help me more. And the more I help them help me, the better chance we have of winning this championship. And I think he's learning to be trustful on both ends, and it's paying dividends now.
Absolutely. And it makes sense. So just looking at it from the other perspective, Brooklyn's side of things, obviously we're not sure exactly what your expectations were of Brooklyn, so maybe you can elaborate on those expectations coming into the series, and then looking at it from Brooklyn's perspective. Is there anything that kind of surprises you that they are throwing at Embiid in the offense, or not throwing at Embiid in the offense? You mentioned the Boston game a couple weeks ago. Early on in that game, they were just choosing to go one-on-one with Embiid. For the most part, you basically trade twos for threes when you look at it from that perspective. Do you think Brooklyn switches up their approach after the first two games, or is it one of those things where it just really doesn't matter? I'm just curious of your opinion on Brooklyn, what you've seen from them so
far. I think they've been pretty hurt by the fact that Dinwiddie's been a non-factor in the first two games.
Yeah,
it's Dinwiddie Island, if we're obviously, but they've been trying. The Sixers have been in drop coverage. I love drop coverage because Joel likes drop coverage and pick and rolls. They're giving him a ton of space off of screens, and Tyrese is, as a defender, he worked hard. He tried. He's getting better, but he just isn't. He simply isn't a net positive consistently yet as a defender. Dinwiddie has had a lot of shots that have been open. They have not fallen. I don't think Brooklyn honestly has many more ways they can try to pivot to play the series. I mean, I think they're probably going to try to pressure the ball more and deny passes to Joel to see if that works. They might go single coverage against Joel in these next couple games to see if they can maybe they can't stop Joel, and maybe they can kind of cover up the leaks elsewhere on the floor and try it that way. I just don't think that they have many things that they can do on offense. Like they're gonna go small ball with 5 out and try to shoot a ton of threes. If the threes are falling, then they're more formidable. Yeah. If they're not falling, then they're dead in the water. I mean, I think part of why the Sixers came out so slow is like the whole story from game one was Brooklyn had an effective field goal percentage of 65 in the first game. That's historic to lose a game that way. Not only did you lose, you lost by 20. You shot the hell out of the ball. You still lost by 20 points. You did everything you possibly could on offense and pitched a near perfect game, and we're still blown out. So I just don't think they have many other ways they can go. Maybe this is maybe 3 or 4 years ago. This is a series that goes 5 or 6 games because Joel isn't mature enough. The Sixers as his team aren't mature enough, but they know that I think they, in some senses, are treating this like it's a practice round for the second round. Yeah. These are the things that we have to do. We have to, take this seriously and take care of business. But, we want to get this over with quickly because we have bigger fish to fry. And I just, I think that Brooklyn has given you, I think, their best shot already.
Yeah, it's the first tune-up playoff series I've ever seen the Philadelphia 76ers playing. But, man, you alluded to and you mentioned Tyrese Maxey there on the defensive end. Offensively, when you watch a performance like last night, and what did he take last night? 13 threes, 12 threes, whatever the case was, knocking down 6 of them. What would you like to see going forward out of Maxey on the offensive side of things? Aggressive wise, attempts from beyond the arc with how efficient he is. What do you want to see out of Maxey, and how important is he moving forward for this team?
I would assume take 10 to 13 threes a night. I mean, you could have made the argument, and I know people will say, like, well, Steph Curry, this guy, that guy. You could have made the argument that statistically Tyrese Maxey was the best shooter in the NBA, and towards the end of the season. And I mean, the guy he's not making one, he's making multiple threes per game now. And, he's a flat out, he's a sniper. Yeah. If only he would just think of himself as a sniper and take more threes.
Yeah.
He hit 6 last night. They made 7 in the second half. He made 4 of them. So just keep being aggressive as a shooter. Keep trying to, get downhill. I think Derek White, it isn't a unique matchup per se, but it's going to offer him, it's going to challenge him to say, how much do I really believe in myself as a jump shooter here? Because Derek White is a low center of gravity. He's long, exact kind of guy that Tyrese, who at this stage of his career does not have a counter move yet. When a guy, beats him to a spot on the perimeter, he's going to have to take it upon himself to be aggressive as a jump shooter. And get up a lot of threes in a series against the Celtics. So I think what I would like to see from him is extend that range a little bit, punish unders when they go under screens on you. I don't know why anybody would go under screens on him at this point because he's such a knockdown shooter right now. Stop with the floaters. Floaters are not the high percentage shot that you really want. And get all the way to the rim. I do think that he also tries to play to contact a little bit because it's easy to do that around the rim when you're getting forearm to the back. But obviously the calls haven't been going really the team's way. Right. So just be aggressive as a shooter. I also think that the Sixers could do more to run actions for him to get open threes. And I don't think he's JJ Redick. I don't think he has that ability as a movement shooter yet coming around picks. That doesn't mean you can't run plays that designed to get him an open look. The guy is he, off the catch, he's just knocked down. In transition, he's knocked down. And I think, like, speaking of transition, that's another way to get him involved. When you have a leak out, push him up the floor in front of everybody else and let James make those passes to him, because that's why their starting lineup is so good, really, because when they get a stop or the team misses a shot, they are out and running.
Yeah. I think that's such a good point because, like, the thing with me with Tyrese Maxey is, like, the confidence, right? He's just got to play with that confidence all the time to let it fly because I notice, like, sometimes when he's hesitating, lacking that confidence, he'll stall the entire offense just trying to get the ball to Embiid. And it's just like, man, just move the ball around or get the ball to Embiid, just make the entry pass. But looking at the Doc Rivers in this situation and kind of how he's handled the team so far, you mentioned the quick timeout coming out of the third quarter to kind of get them back on track. They started with a turnover and then an easy bucket for Brooklyn ultimately.
Yeah. By the way, people are like, wow, what a great speech. Come on, guy. Like first of all, do you think that TNT is going to play the audio of him like cursing out his team?
Right.
Like no, they're going to show you the most, PG stuff that they can. And also, by the way, coaches this isn't the 1980s. Coaches aren't rah, calling you names during timeouts. This isn't how that works anymore. Clearly what he said elicited the response that they wanted because they came out with a 5-0 run in like 6 seconds flat.
Not to mention what he said was literally the embodiment of what every Sixers fan was thinking with the energy and the effort last night. Like, there's nothing more to say. It's just, come on, man. Really? Like,
play harder, literally.
Yeah, no, Doc could cure cancer. People would be furious. So.
No doubt. So, like, looking at Doc Rivers' whole perspective here, because I think Doc Rivers had a pretty solid season this year, in all honesty, and he's not going to get the credit, which that is what it is.
Only for the losses, Scotty.
Only for the losses. But what are your thoughts on just how Doc has this team moving right now to start this series? The rotations that he's putting out there. And then just to kind of tag along with that question, who have you been most impressed with from the bench unit? So just thoughts on Doc so far and then the bench unit.
So only thing I would like to see more of is like find a way to incorporate Daniel House Jr. more because I think there's a chance you're going to need him in the next round or beyond. So I think, getting him ready for those minutes is important. Obviously, Paul Reed has been phenomenal. His offensive evolution has just been unbelievable. The last month, he's becoming a very, very, very good finisher. And through traffic, he's now able to put the ball on the floor for one bounce just to get himself set and then
between the legs.
Yeah, that was very much like an ad lib. Let's just see if we can do this here. I don't think they want him doing that, but it was fun to watch. But like his presence as a rebounder is very understated. Like that dude gets to a lot of loose balls when he's on the floor. And I mean, not only are they like they're not just drawing even now in the Paul Reed minutes, they're winning the Paul Reed minutes. And his 2-man game with James has been phenomenal. He's figuring out when to step up into the dunker for, when the dump off pass is made. He is learning, okay, this is how I roll. This is when I slip a screen versus set a hard screen. And the foul trouble hasn't been there. Like he's holding his own, and
Mhm.
I think we can condense a Sixers playoff run down to two things. They're going to win Embiid minutes most of the time because he's that good. How do you win the non Embiid minutes?
Or stay
And
even.
correct. And I think that is what we're talking about here. And I think if they can win, they're going to win the Embiid minutes against Boston. Can they stay even or win the minutes when Embiid is off the floor? Because if they can, and you're getting plus and plus in both of those stints, you're going to be fine. And I think with the thing with Doc, everything has been kosher so far. I do think that he's going to be tasked with leaving the starters in more in the next couple of rounds. And those minutes are going to climb up. They're going to be playing 41, 42, 43 minutes a game as these playoffs get deeper and deeper. Because people can say the Celtics are this, they're that, and the other. Bottom line is the rotations always get more shallow when you get deeper into the playoffs, and it's about putting the five best players you can on the floor, especially as you approach a game 6, approach a game 7. I mean, look at the Warriors last season. They gave Jordan Poole an enormous contract this summer after he was almost out of the rotation in the finals. So you put your five best guys on the floor, and the Sixers are going to win against most teams with their starting five. So I think they do have a chance as long as Doc is not pulling guys out with 2 fouls, and like that's something that got to stop. Like you got to stop. You got to learn to trust your guys with 2
Trust.
fouls.
Yeah.
Yes,
There we go.
exactly. And and so I think that's a huge factor in all this. But I do think that when you think about, okay, our starters are playing 42 minutes a game in the second round and beyond, and they're, Joel is a walking plus minus of plus a million. I think you have to like their chances against anybody because they've shored up that backup 5 position, and now it's as you said, the deeper you go, it's more about your best 5 guys on the floor, and I think they're going to have 2 of the 3 best players in most series if Harden can be the Harden of game 1 and not the Harden of game 2. For the love of God, don't be the Harden of game 2. Whatever you can avoid that, avoid that.
I wanted to follow up with one more player question since it seems like we've hit all 12 players that Doc's playing so far in this interview. James Harden, man, the difference. Now, again, he didn't shoot very efficiently from the field as a whole in game 1, but the 7 threes, the way he was kind of able to take over that game for a stretch there, compared to what he put out with 8 points, all those turnovers in game 2, right? We talk a lot about Joel and all the different ways he's able to impact the game on both sides. And even though he's not getting the points right now, he's finding ways to win here. Maxey, Tobias, same thing. When you watch James Harden and watch how poor the Sixers, offensive unit was run last night, because he is the conductor. Is he kind of like the overall X factor for this playoff run in terms of, if you get great James Harden, this team has one of the best odds to win a chip right now. And if you get anywhere near game 2's James Harden, they're going to be scratching and clawing against any opponent.
I don't even think they'll be scratching and clawing. They're going to get cooked in the second round if game 2 James is the James that you're getting in even half the series against Boston. Yeah, you're losing to the Celtics. You need him to be on his A game, and I do think there are some positive signs. Like one of the first plays of game 2, he draws Claxton on a switch, and Claxton is an all-world perimeter defender, particularly against switches. And he blows right by him for a layup after missing every layup he took in game 1 and got it and made the shot. In game 1, I think you can attribute that to some rust and him just not playing in 2 weeks, and the Brooklyn was selling out on the backside when he made his first step left, and he wasn't seeing them coming, so he would go for a layup and they would be there for the chase down block. So I think he kind of just made up for it with his incredible shot making. Didn't really matter. The James Harden of game 2. Now, granted, I will say this: Joel never ever, from all of the conferences that I've covered, from all the times I talked to him, behind the scenes, has never once, to my recollection, ever talked about officiating as it pertains to his teammates. He came out and did not mince words about the way James was officiated in game 2. He said he hasn't moved the free throw line at all yet in the series. It's insane.
Ridiculous.
And so, granted, I can't see the fouls every time they're committed from where I sit, but I do wonder how much of game 2's struggle was him getting hit or taking contact that should have been called and not getting the call, and then it's a turnover. He did have a better second half, but when James, I was saying this to family. I wrote this in my game piece last night. The thing about James that I think is so divisive and so polarizing is his upside is that he's like a top 5 offense by himself. Like he governs a team, runs the floor. He is the I guess he runs an orchestra, if you will.
Right.
When he's at his best, in terms of the passing, the shot making. When he's at his worst, it is ugly, very ugly. The shot making isn't there. Some of his shot selection might as well be a turnover itself because he's so off the mark that they're running out anyway. His defense was atrocious in game 2. They were blowing by him like he was a cardboard cutout, and the turnovers were hideous. They were, every time he attacked traffic, it was a turnover. You wondered if he was trying to like throw the game for a second there. I don't think you're ever going to mitigate the downside. The downside is what it is. When his peaks are phenomenal, his troughs are canyons, and that's just the way he is. You're just kind of hoping that can you get the peak James Harden 4 times, 4 times in a series, and even if you can't, can you just get a level that is slightly less than that, and not the F- guy that you saw last night?
Yeah, I was going to follow that up. Do you think the Sixers have a chance to win a championship with a middle ground James Harden, or do they need peak Harden to win a championship?
I think they can win a title if he's giving you 22 and 10. Just be the guy that you were most of this season. You don't need the 20. You don't need the guy that you saw, to drop 38 against Milwaukee in Milwaukee. Right. You don't need that guy. You just need him to be the guy he was most of the season, which is to say, a 38 to 40% 3-point shooter on high volume. A phenomenal, a phenomenal assist turnover ratio. Look, every players are going to have bad series. They're going to or bad games. You're going to have here and there. It just can't be 3 bad games, right, in a 7-game series, 1 or 2, and you have to find a way to be your best self in light of those struggles. And I think he's someone who kind of has a tendency to check out when he's struggling a little bit, and let it spiral. But the good news is that it doesn't matter for this series. It's about what happens next series. And I do think, he had good games against Boston this season. He was awesome in the season opener. He had another good game in there too. So we will see.
Yeah, man. Well, listen, Krell, we've taken up too much of your time here. So before we get you out of here,
no worries.
What are your predictions for the next 2 games or the rest of this series? If you have it going further than a sweep, and we talked to your buddy Kai Carlin last Wednesday. He doesn't see them getting past Boston. What is your prediction moving forward for this team?
It's a great question, and it changes every day. I vacillate between just going chalk because it just seems like the path of least risk. But I will say this: the Sixers have been different for me this year. Like I know people are like second round exit, it's the same team as always. No. This isn't the same team as always. Everything that they've done this year in terms of the resume of wins they've had and the way they've won games and not just needing to play one style to win. They've shown a maturity and a tendency and characteristics of a team that can be a champion. It's just a shame that they're in the East because there's 2 teams in the East that have better records than they do. If they were in the West, they'd be the 1 seed and probably the favorite. But I will say that I think they're going to probably finish this game off in the next 2, ideally, just to get off their feet sooner. I believe in them, and I do trust them. I haven't made a prediction yet. I'm leaning right now. I am leaning towards picking the Sixers in 7 against Boston.
That's what I love to hear. That's enough
That
for me.
That might be tomorrow morning. It might be Boston in 7, but I just think like all they've done this season, they've earned my belief in them.
Yeah,
to say that they can do that. That doesn't mean it's a logical reason. It doesn't mean that that Boston isn't a better team or whatnot. It's just that I can't say I believe in them and that they've been different for me, and then say that it's going to be the
They're
same.
going to do the same thing.
Yeah. So I think I'm willing to say you've proven yourselves to me, and I think that means I'm going to pick you to win.
I like that.
I agree with you, man. I think they've kind of done that in the first 2 games, the way they've handled business. I said to Scotty, I think in the Joel Embiid era, they've only won 2 game ones in the Joel Embiid playoff era. If my memory serves correct, it's Toronto last year and Miami the year with Dario and Rocco. Outside of that, if it's the Jared Dudley led Nets, they find ways to lose early games. But Krell, we appreciate you coming on, my man. Hopefully we talk to you later on through this long Sixers playoff run. Guys, don't forget to find him on Twitter at NBA Krell. He covers our Sixers for the Painted Lines Network, and he's also a contributor for USA Today's Sports Media Group. My man, enjoy the rest of your night.
Thanks, guys.
Later, Krell.
Peace.
All right, man. That is going to wrap up this edition of the Phaithful Fanatics show. Scotty, I think you said a lot of interesting points that we have kind of said for the last couple of days, or this season, really, just believing in this team. The tune-up part of this series I thought was pretty funny too. But nonetheless, always good talking to Austin Krell. Guys, that is going to do it for this Phaithful Fanatics interview. Have a great rest of your Wednesday afternoon, and go Sixers.
Go Sixers.